In this episode, we're going to talk to Sean Kane, who's the CEO of F6S. F6S have been a client of ours for over 7 years, and we're going to talk to him about the power of building a global online community.
Enabling Success for Founders and Entrepreneurial Businesses, hosted by Toby Harper.
Sean, great, welcome. Thank you very much for participating in this.
Always a pleasure, Toby. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, well, to get us started, why don't you tell us a bit about F6S and your role?
It's my favorite topic, the F6S part, not my role part. F6S is the largest growth company in the world with over 4 million members. And it's all free. The name means founders, so it's the F and the S at the beginning and end of founders, with the 6 letters in between, F6S. We get about 1,500, 2,000 new members a day, which is great. More friends every day. And the growth in the community that we deliver these companies comes from 15K F6S members, companies like Amazon, the European Union, top funds, and then they deliver about $3 billion a year or more to founders. Thousands of F6S members from around the world get funded, or they get grants, they get free stuff from those companies. And more. And my role is to lead and help and work with my 140 plus amazing F6S co-founders. Everybody that works at F6S is considered an F6S co-founder, to grow that 3 billion plus every day.
Yeah, that is seriously cool. Some numbers there I didn't even appreciate. So what was the idea behind F6S then? What was that light bulb moment? How did you get it started?
So I'd been part of growing startups over the last few decades, right around 2011, and I'd finished my last startup, and throughout that time, even though I'd been part of a few amazing startups with great teams that IPO'd or sold for amounts totaling in the billions, it just never got easier. It was always hard to be a founder, and the same issues came around again and again. So I looked at what I know how to do with that problem, and what I know how to do is leading growth at social networks, like what I did with the great team at Bebo, or working with the folks that I worked with at mp3.com to build a community-based marketplace for digital media. And I said, let's take what I know and apply it to this problem. And that's really what F6S came from. Using those skills and building a team that could use those skills to make being a founder an easier experience and make it easier to grow.
Okay, cool. And it's all about the community, isn't it, with F6S and developing that community. Tell us a little bit about what a community-driven business model looks like and what the benefits are.
Absolutely. The best benefit is the community, right? You have to love the community you're involved with. And I love founders, and every member of my team wakes up and says, hey, what can I do today to help a founder, right? And that runs from coders to QA to paying bills to all those roles. We spend a lot of time thinking about our mission and our values and why we show up and why we care. But a community-led model also has a lot of other opportunities for you. And one of them is the more you feed into the community, the more you build this goodwill, this psyche amongst your community members, the more they want to do for you. And they want to do things like tell their friends maybe. If they had a good experience and F6S got someone $25,000 in free hosting, didn't ask for anything. And that's one of our core values as part of our mission, which is we give first without expecting anything in return. They're going to tell their friends. So in all of its history, F6S has never had a marketing budget.
Wow.
We've never spent anything on marketing. We've never had an acquisition-oriented marketing budget where we paid. And that's where the product link comes in, because it's very simple in this model to say, hey, what can I do for founders today? That's our values, right? I'm not so worried if they'll pay me. I'm not worried even if they'll thank me, right? It's always nice to be thanked, but it rarely happens. What I want to do is build my product in such a way that it delivers more and more value and drives our top line KPI, which is the billions of dollars that we deliver to founders through their free membership.
Yeah. The business is propelled by the community then, by the sounds of it, hence why you don't need a marketing budget.
Absolutely.
So tell us a bit more about the product, though, because at some point you sort of develop this community. You've got to think about how you're going to monetize that, and how does that work? How do you find how you can continue to add value to the community whilst turning it into a profitable business? That's got to be difficult, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's a really good question. And the question that we ask isn't how do we make money off this. The question we ask at the beginning is this good for founders? These founders of the growth companies that are part of F6S, and will this deliver value to them? So we have the resources we have, just like with all growth companies, F6S has limited finite resources, and we seek the highest result in terms of what we deliver the founder as part of those billions of dollars, pounds, rupees, euros that we deliver to founders around the world from our resources. So the first goal is to make it work for founders and make it work at scale. There are a lot of people that can help founders one-on-one, but at some point you run out of time. So this product process of figuring out whether something's worth doing involves experimentation. It doesn't involve spending a lot of time sitting with founders, although we certainly do listen to them and talk to them, but it's more how do we build a product? How do we communicate that to our community? Does our community want that? Who else has to be involved? Because we have to convince an Amazon or a European Union or a World Bank or a Pfizer to give whatever it is to the company through our community. So monetization really comes at the end. Monetization is important, but it's very much more of a Facebook type model where the first goal is to make people happy and make you comfortable and give you something that you value, and then we'll worry about monetizing it later. We do monetize, obviously, because we have to pay salaries, but it's not our primary focus.
Yeah. But you've built such a global community, right? I think you told me that only 6% of your community is actually located in the UK. So when it comes to sort of monetization, you can understand, or I can understand in my head, the sort of the advertising-led revenue model like Facebook, but you've built services around the value-added bits you offer your community. Yeah. There's got to be some challenges doing that with such a huge global community, though, hasn't it? Spread across multiple jurisdictions. What actually are the services you provide, Sean?
F6S primarily provides the services, or we do provide the services that are in those billions of dollars in pounds, euros of value that we deliver to our members. So members every day get millions in funding, in grants, in free services from large entities, and other help that deliver tangible benefits in their business model, and then help them solve their daily growth struggles or needs to get funding, needs to pay the bills, needs to cut their costs, right, in the case of a free service. So all of those things happen through the network. You mentioned, very good point, scalability of services. One of the great things that we learned early about F6S is something, and it was very important to test that in the first 90 days, really, is what we were offering was something that everybody wanted in the world. And I don't mean that in the sense that our global market is in the billions of people, right? I meant that in the sense that the first entity that ever used F6S was actually in India.
Yeah, wow.
So I'm working in Cambridge with a couple of coders. No one in the UK wants to use it quite yet, right? I have someone coming up the next month, and I reached out to someone in India, and he said, that's exactly what I've been looking for. I want it. So the global scalability of most of what we do is important. There are a few services that we provide that are limited to specifically France, the United Kingdom, Ireland, and Canada. And the reason we decided to do those in our product mix is because they deliver so much benefit to founders. We've delivered, well over 100 million pounds of money through, for example, our R&D and accounting services to companies like Revolut. There's so much value to the founder that even though it's not a service we can offer in every single country in the world, like the rest of F6S, it's a service that's worth offering and keeping to push out to other countries. In the case of our services area, we can reach about 47 countries. Yeah, we're only in a small fraction of that now, but it's growing very quickly, and we're doubling countries every year. Yeah,
wow. And so, presumably, I mean, when we've talked about this sort of, product-led growth, haven't we, and sort of testing products, testing the value that it provides to your community and engagement and that sort of thing, presumably that not everything has been successful along the way. I know that you and I have talked about, you guys were even thinking about delivering a legal service, weren't you, at one point?
Yeah.
So at what point do you decide is a service or a product that you're delivering to your community, is it going to be viable or not? What are the key metrics? How do you assess that?
Yeah.
And then sort of back out from it, essentially.
Yeah, good point. Surround yourself with smart people, I guess, is the first thing. And thank you again for the excellent advice, as usual, that led us not to decide to go into legal services. You guys do a great job, but it's not something that fits our particular organization. So that certainly listening to people and listening to what other people do well or don't do well is really important. And watching Harper James do legal services and push the scale but still provide great services to people like us was something that I've learned from watching you. But from the basis of maintaining that innovation and growing, what we do is we have an experimental part of F6S, and it's actually called experiments. Okay. And then we have established F6S. And the experimental part of F6S, if you will, is our internal accelerator. Okay, it's where we test new ideas, new ways of doing things. As we scale, we test new business models for driving growth and helping founders. And each of those experiments grows or doesn't grow. Right now, we have about an 80% success rate with our experiments. Wow. If an experiment doesn't grow, we help the awesome F6S team member that's leading it help another area or do a different experiment. And if it's working well, we hire people very quickly. So we now have about 30% of F6S working in the experiment side of things, which has grown very quickly. And as each experiment graduates, it becomes its own team alongside the established teams. Yeah.
I love that. So you've almost got sort of mini accelerators, sort of incubators within the business, building ideas, testing ideas. Where are the ideas coming from? I mean, you talked about 140 co-founders, right? So you're obviously engaging with your team and probably empowering them to
doing my best. Yes. Yeah.
Is it sort of is it internal ideas? People coming to you and saying, "Sean, I really think we should do this," or is it the community asking for it? Is it sort of a mix of both?
Yeah. So statistics are key. If you can't measure it, it's really hard to do something with it. And there are problems you can't measure, and in those we'll try something, shot in the dark, and we'll see what happens. But you have to sort of discount accordingly. So a successful growth startup today needs to have a handle of what's going on. And this is where tools like Amplitude or Segment or other tools that are out there in the SaaS world that are available for any startup at very low cost are really important. So you can see exactly what people are doing, how they're doing it, and then use that to validate and attack your own ideas internally before you invest in them. We definitely listen to founders. There's something founders want. Legal services was a great example. Founders want excellent, reasonably priced legal services that they understand, right? It's not something we're going to deliver, as we discussed. It's something you do really well, and we're super happy with it. But the ideas come everywhere in the organization. Come from everywhere in the organization. If it rises up to enough benefit and we can deliver enough billions of value to founders out of it, we'll kick off an experiment. And it's very much a cross-team thing where there are different resources that'll come in based on what's needed for the experiment in order to validate it and then keep it learning and keep the team learning. Keep the team learning until we reach either a successful conclusion or we decide that it's not possible. Another great example of experiments that have failed is we tried a co-working experiment before COVID. So that was when the marketplace was still healthy. And then concluded very quickly due to the structure of that market that it wasn't an area that we could deliver particular amounts of value to founders. Whereas on the other hand, right now we have an investor experiment to expand our value to investors and to help them deliver more funding to F6S member startups. And that one's going gangbusters. So it's hard to know the outcome before you start. The important part is to watch it carefully, learn, and then at some point you have to decide whether you're going to call it a day or double down.
I love the idea of building a community and the community builds the business. The fact that you haven't spent any money on marketing is incredible. You guys are venture backed though, aren't you? So you've raised some capital, but you told me that you're profitable. And that's got to be down to the community-driven model, hasn't it? Presumably, the community model can be adopted by different businesses across different sectors. You know, it got me thinking when we were talking before about how I might be able to try and develop a bit of a community within my business, within my client base, and adopt that to try and help me build the business. What are the sort of the key things, though, do you think that anyone who's looking at sort of adopting a community-driven business model needs to sort of focus on?
Yeah. Really, the important part is what does your community want, right? At the end of the day, who are they? What do they want? How do they want to relate to you? Fantastic idea on legal services, right? I can, I'm running the numbers in my head on, I wonder how that would increase retention. I wonder how that would increase cross-sell. I wonder how that would increase utilization of your services. And if you do it right, they will all go up. But I can also imagine, and in the legal case is a great one, legal clients probably want to be related to in a very different way than our 4 million plus F6S growth company founder members do. So understanding the tone of the community is very important, and how you communicate. F6S communicates in a specific tone to our users, which is very focused on delivering to them and what's the benefit, almost utilitarian in many ways. And we fight for every single interaction to have value. The value that you would deliver as a legal entity would obviously be a different type of value that would make them happy. And the last aspect is values, which sounds really silly. Everybody talks about values. But the reason we don't need to have a marketing budget is because our values are immersed in our product. And the money we spend on coders, the money we spend on amazing team members who chat with startups or write emails to startups, on product, is effectively our marketing budget. And I don't see any reason why that wouldn't work in any other area, from food delivery to legal services to space flight, right? It seems like a tool that's available to any growth company founder anywhere in the world.
Amazing. So Sean, your first user was in India, right? And so you built from the outset a business that has a true global reach. That's got to have some major challenges from day one, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's fun. I wouldn't say they're necessarily challenges in many ways. Most of them are advantages, but there's some challenges at the beginning. I share at a high level, just to set the stage. About a third of our users and a third of our value are delivered in North America, in the United States and Canada. About a third are in Europe. About 15% are in India today. 5% Latin America, Middle East, and so on. So it's a truly global community of F6S members. In the early days, it was really interesting because we weren't a particularly popular company type in the United Kingdom. I got lots of questions from early investors on my unit economics of delivering certain services, and people asking, so are your deals like Groupon, right? So not exactly, right? There's a different value behind them. So that was certainly a challenge at that point. Probably not so much now that the ecosystem in the UK, as it has in the cities where our millions of F6S members live, has grown quite a bit and progressed. Specifically to the UK, there are clearly some Brexit issues, but they're relatively minor, and many of them are actually advantages, not in the sense of fish being happy or not, but more in the sense that there are some opportunities that have forced us to diversify our structure internationally, that have led to more opportunities to root ourselves in other areas of the world. And not just in the United Kingdom, that have benefited us and my team. Being global in general, though, is enormously helpful in the sense that it makes you attractive to large global companies that today control a large part of the $73 trillion global economy. So if you're talking to a Ford or a Pfizer or LG, and you're trying to help them understand the value of the F6S network and why they should bring their money and their resources and give it to F6S startups through the site. Saying that you're just in the UK or just in Europe is much less interesting than saying we're a global community and we're everywhere. So that helps an enormous amount in unlocking new sources of value. Another important aspect of being global is you learn from everywhere. And you can only really do that effectively in a SaaS model at scale. So even in a very service-oriented business, we continually learn from, even in the part of the business that serves growth founders in the United Kingdom, France, Canada, and Ireland. We continually learn from people in those markets, but at the same time, we understand what U.S. founders like, and we're preparing our launch in the U.S. with similar products that we serve those other founders with. We would not be able to do that if we didn't already have 1 million plus F6S members in the U.S. that were continually giving us feedback through their usage and through their emails.
Yeah, amazing. So, Sean, if we just finally, what's one thing that you do as a leader that makes a contribution to the success of the business?
Yeah, it's tough being a leader, right? There's no other. There's no two ways about that one. It's a constant battle. It's a constant fight to help your team and help them grow. And at the end of the day, the thing that I work the hardest on is staying as a player coach fundamentally. So it's important to have the vision for where the business is going. It's very important to understand how we're going to unlock the next billion in value to our members. But personally, and this may not apply to anybody else, what I find is if I don't understand what's going on, and if I don't listen to my team members, my co-founders, I'm unable to do a good job as a leader. Because increasingly you get removed and you don't understand what you need to do to grow. And if there's anything that's happened, and I've seen as a trend over the last 15 years or so, F6S has been around for 11 years, is that the real-time access to data and the acceleration of growth of innovation and expansion of growth companies into new markets they were never present in before. And it doesn't matter whether it's insurance or founder growth in our case or spaceflight, right? The acceleration of that means you always have to be on your toes, and you always have to communicate and lead your team towards the next success, which means being on both sides. Big picture, what's actually going on in the business, what are people telling us, what do our founders and members want?
Player coach, that makes sense. Great. Sean, thanks a lot for taking part in this. Really appreciate your time.
It's been an honor. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure.
Cheers. Thank you for listening. I hope you found it useful and informative. Please follow us, and hopefully we'll see you on the next one.